Shepsu-Het turned to face the shadowy figure standing in the chamber's entrance. The other priests followed suit and sank quickly to their knees as they recognized the figure. Nagash, son of Khemri, Grand Hierophant of the living city's mortuary cult, favored the kneeling priests with a disdainful glare. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded in a clear, resonant voice. The senior priests looked to one another apprehensively, the disquiet evident in the set of their hunched shoulders and furtive movements. Finally, they turned to Shepsu-Het, who gathered his courage and spoke. "Time is of the essence, Holy One," he said, his old voice muffled by the mask he wore. "I thought you would wish us to begin the rites at once." "Once again you demonstrate why I am Grand Hierophant instead of you," Nagash said, stepping deeper into the room. He moved with a jungle cat's grace, gliding almost soundlessly across the stone floor. "You are an old fool, Shepsu-Het. I choose to attend upon my father alone." He waved his arm at the doorway behind him. "Begone! If I need the assistance of a pack of prattling monkeys, I shall send for you." The senior priests quailed before Nagash's forbidding stare. They rose quickly as one and shuffled out of the room. Shepsu-Het went last, his expression unreadable beneath the smooth, golden features of his mask. As he departed, the figure of a young priest slipped quietly through the doorway into the chamber. Unlike Nagash, the young man was conservatively attired in a white robe and simple gold belt, but his scarred face was lit with an impudent grin and his brown eyes were sharp and calculating. "That one means you trouble, master," he murmured, watching Shepsu-Het disappear from sight. Nagash stepped forward around the foot of the bier and folded his arms, studying the body of his dead father in detail. "I suppose you think I should kill him," he said, absently. The young priest shrugged and said, "He must be 150 years old. There are herbs that could find their way into his wine. Simple things you could find in the temple kitchens, but deadly when combined in the right way. Or an asp could wind up underfoot in the priest's baths. It's been known to happen." Nagash shrugged slightly, listening with only half an ear. His attention was focused on the body before him, looking for clues that would reveal how the priest-king had died. Khemri's skin had a yellow tinge from the natron wash the priests had given the corpse, but it could not fully disguise the body's grey pallor. Though well advanced in years, at the age of 100, Khemri still possessed a measure of the fighting strength he'd enjoyed in his prime. Nagash studied the formation of the king's muscles, noting with a frown the dark lines of the corpse's veins and the body's distended belly. "Too much wine and luxury," he muttered. "Your defeat was written in the sagging lines of your body, father. Your glories made you weak." The young priest chuckled and said, "I thought that was the point of glories, master." Khemri was the first son of a wealthy merchant family who had enjoyed spending his father's coin on wine and games of dice. He'd got the scar that disfigured the left side of his face in a drunken knife fight outside a gaming house. His opponent, the son of a powerful noble in Khemri's court, died a few days later. Rather than face execution, Khemri had begun a new life in the mortuary cult. He was a terrible scholar and an indifferent priest, but possessed a sharp wit and a singular bloody-mindedness that Nagash found useful. He'd chosen Khemri as his personal servant on the same day he'd become Khemri's Grand Hierophant. "Glory is for fools," Nagash declared. "It's a poison that saps the will and diminishes one's resolve. Khemri learned that to his cost." Khemri arched an eyebrow at his master and said, "No doubt you would have ruled differently." Nagash glared balefully at the young priest. At 16, he'd followed his father's army east through the ancient Valley of Kings and then south towards the steaming jungles that, according to legend, had been the birthplace of their people. For 3 years, Khemri had fought against the hordes of lizard men that lurked there, beginning construction of the great fortress of Rasetra as a bastion against their constant raids against the allied city of Liberas. When Khattab was stricken down with a fever, Nagash assumed command of the expedition. For almost 6 months, he'd led his father's warriors in a merciless campaign against their enemies, finally culminating in the brutal battle that had broken the backs of the local lizard chieftains and pacified the region. For those 6 months, he'd ruled like a king and held the land in an iron grip, but when Khattab had recovered enough to begin the long trek home, he'd given Rasetra to one of his generals, and brought Nagash back to the living city with him. The surviving members of the expedition had been forbidden to speak of Nagash's brief rule. He had been praised as a mighty warrior, but no more, and upon their arrival in Khemri, the king sent Nagash to Sedra's temple to begin his studies. Now, 13 years later, Rasetra was a small but thriving city with a priest-king of its own. The Grand Hierophant rested his palm on the hilt of the jeweled irhebs at his belt. If noble families passed their inheritance to the firstborn, as they do in the barbarian tribes to the far north, things would have been very different indeed, Nagash said. Instead, fortunes are passed to second sons, and we are shut up in temples. The firstborn are given to the gods in return for the blessed land they have given us, Khepru said, reciting the old saying with no small amount of bitterness. It could be worse. At least they don't sacrifice us like they did in the old days. The gods should take goats and be content, Nagash snapped. They need us far more than we need them. Khepru shifted from one foot to the other, suddenly uncomfortable. He glanced worriedly at the grim-looking statues on the other side of the room. Surely you don't mean such a thing, he said quickly. Without them, the land would wither. The ancient compact sold us a bowl of sand in exchange for eternal servitude, Nagash declared. The gods offered to make our fields bloom and hold the desert at bay in exchange for worship and devotion. Think on that, Khepru. They were willing to give us paradise in exchange for prayers and the gifts of our firstborn. The gods were desperate. Without us, they were weak. We could have enslaved them, bent them to our will. Instead, we are in bondage, giving them strength we could better use ourselves. Real power lies here, in this world, Nagash said, tapping the marble beer for emphasis, not in the next. Setra understood this, I think. That was why he sought the secret to eternal life. Without the fear of death, the gods would have no hold over us at all. A secret that has eluded the mortuary cult for more than 500 years, Khepru pointed out. That is because our sorcery depends upon the beneficence of the gods, Nagash said. All our rites and invocations are fueled by their energies. Do you imagine they will help us escape their clutches? The Grand Hierophant clenched his fists. Do not think I flatter myself when I say I possess the greatest mind in all Nehechara. In 13 years, I have learned everything the cult knows about the process of life and death. I have the knowledge, Khepru. What I lack is power. As he spoke, Nagash's eyes grew fever bright, and his voice rose until it was almost a shout. The intensity of the Grand Hierophant's emotions stunned Khepru. One day you will find it, Master, the young priest stammered, suddenly afraid. No doubt, it's only a matter of time. Nagash paused. He blinked and seemed to collect himself, and said, Yes, of course, merely time. The Grand Hierophant glanced down at his father's body. He drew the curved bronze knife at his belt. Bring the first jar, he commanded. I won't have Shepsu-Het accuse me of failing in my duties.